What's up, True Crime World? You're here with Luminol on the Wall, and I'm Bevy.
And I'm Becky. And today's case takes us all the way to California, where Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris kill 5 different women within a 4-month period. This case discusses sexual assault, torture, and suicide. Listeners' discretion is advised. In 1977, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris met while they were both incarcerated at the California Men's Colony. When they first met, they didn't actually vibe well together. However, it wasn't long till they became acquaintances and then friends. And the reason why that is because Roy actually taught Lawrence how to construct jewelry.
Jewelry?
Jewelry.
So weird.
Yeah, let me just learn jewelry making while I'm in prison.
Hey, what else are you going to do with your time?
Read.
Fuck reading.
Yeah, make a jewelry.
Of course Becky would say that. The non-reader of the family.
Beverly.
Who would want to read?
Whatever, at least I'm honest about it. I'm not like, yeah, let me borrow your fucking dumb book that I'll never fucking read.
Don't you have 2 of my books?
Yeah, Mom just gave them to me, Bev. I wasn't like, ooh, Mom, that sounds like an intriguing book.
Let me read those.
She's like, here, Becky, read
Take these off my
like,
hands.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Okay, so these guys bond over jewelry making.
That's right, their creative side. But what really bonded these men was Lawrence actually saved Roy from getting attacked by other inmates on 2 different occasions in 1978. Not only had they become really good friends, but they actually figured out that they both had interests in sexual violence and misogyny. So I guess they bonded over that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a common interest. That's
That'll
usually
do it.
What gets people
Yeah.
closer, I
Right?
suppose.
I mean,
even
on
though
most
it's messed up.
Yeah, like most people are like, oh, you like skateboarding? I like skateboarding. Let's go do that together.
You like doing art? I like doing art.
Yeah, so the jewelry thing made sense, but this is left field.
I mean, it makes sense why they would connect on it and become closer as a result, but it's just fucked right up.
It's on a different scale than the average Joe, hey?
Oh, yeah. You would hope that not everyone bonds over misogyny.
You would hope that, Bev.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Roy had actually told Lawrence that his ultimate fantasy and biggest sexual stimulation was actually seeing frightened young women. He enjoyed that fear in their eyes.
What a sick and twisted fuck.
Seriously. Now, Roy Norris had actually committed sexual offenses against women in his past, and that actually being one of the reasons why he was in prison. However, Lawrence had not ever raped a woman before. But he did tell Roy within their conversations that if he ever raped a woman, that he would kill her so that there would be no witnesses.
They are scheming. They are straight up scheming at this point.
Yeah, I mean, nothing good is going to come from this, and we can already tell.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, Bev, both men had pretty lengthy rap sheets to get them imprisoned in this men's colony, although each man kind of had his different MO leading up to this. You'll notice that over the years, their crimes get more intense and progress. So let's kind of talk about what actually got them to the men's colony in detail, where they had the unfortunate, timely meeting. Now, Lawrence Bittaker was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on September 27th, 1940. He was unwanted by his birth parents and ultimately was given up for adoption. A wonderful family adopted him. However, they moved around the States a lot due to their jobs. And it caused a lot of issues for Lawrence. Ultimately, at the age of 12, he had his first brush with crime. He shoplifted. And it left him with actually a pretty minor criminal record. However, the next 4 years he continued to shoplift, and ultimately he was on the juvenile authorities' radar. At the age of 17, Lawrence and his family were living in California, and he had ultimately decided to drop out of high school. Sadly, he shouldn't have, because he was so smart. He actually had a very high IQ. Within the first year of dropping out, Lawrence had been arrested for a car theft, a hit and run, and evading arrest. And at that time, he was sent to prison at the California Youth Authority Center. Unfortunately, upon his release, Bev, he learned that his adoptive parents had disowned him and moved to another state.
Jeez, that's harsh.
That is harsh. And it was actually the very last time he ever saw them.
What?
Yeah, so it's not like they reconnected if he strained his ways. They just never saw him again.
That's a little bit devastating, I would think. Like, he wasn't wanted by his birth parents, and now he's being abandoned. Kind of sad.
No, it's like so sad. What parent just gives up on their son? Like, he wasn't doing major crimes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Give him a
I mean,
chance.
I'm sure there's like a decent amount of parents that do that, but I just can't fathom why any parent would want to do that, or would, like, how they would have the heart to do that.
I could never.
Not the heart, I would just say the evil heart to do that.
Evil heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could never do that myself.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if he was acting out, but days within him being released from the youth authority, he was arrested again for transporting a stolen vehicle across state lines. And at that time, he was actually sentenced to 18 months in Oklahoma State Reformatory. At this point, I'm starting to think he likes being incarcerated, because just months after being released again, he had been arrested for a robbery, and at that point he got sentenced to 15 years.
My God, hey, was it a big robbery?
I don't have the details, Bev, but for 15 years it must
have been something
Yeah.
of significance.
And they probably look at his rap sheet being
And they're
like,
yo.
this guy just keeps making those dumb decisions.
Yeah,
Let's
like,
just
he's been stealing shit.
exactly, like,
It's not a one-time occurrence. He's been doing it.
he knows what's up, he knows what's wrong, he knows the system.
Yeah.
Lock him up. Now, Bev, while he was locked up, he had actually been labeled by a psychiatrist being highly manipulative, as well as having considerable concealed hostility. So this man had some freaking rage in him.
Well, I don't blame him, to be fair.
I know, his first parents didn't want him, his second parents didn't want him.
Yeah, so it would be quite surprising if someone who experienced that didn't have some sort of pent-up hostility towards, their life.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like, they're like, I got dealt a raw fucking hand here.
Yeah, that's the shit
Shitty
end
deal.
of the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor guy, right?
All right, so...
However, he had a high IQ, so he knows what he's up to. He knows he's being bad. He knows he could make a better life.
Of course, you still know right from wrong, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you know you're making the bad choices, but maybe he just, like, didn't care. He's like, I like being bad. I like it.
Ooh, I'm bad.
Ooh, I'm bad, and I like it. I like it. Ooh, I'm bad.
Some people be like that, you know?
Yep.
Now, we know he was sentenced to 15 years. However, stroke of luck, he was released after only 2 years.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so he was in there for 15, gets released after 2. So did he have some good behavior?
No, Bev. It did not look up for him.
What?
It wasn't long before he was back in jail for a parole violation. And during that incarceration, he actually had further examinations by 2 psychiatrists, both who classified him as borderline psychopath, a highly manipulative individual, and he was actually unable to acknowledge the consequences of his actions. He was then prescribed antipsychotic medication, and years later, he was released again.
Huh.
So, July of 1967, Lawrence had finished his parole. However, as we can almost expect at this point, he was arrested
Again.
and convicted of theft and leaving the scene of an accident.
Wow, this dude is a theft machine.
A klepto.
He's got some hot hands, bro.
Yeah, he sure does.
It's crazy.
He's not stealthy about it, though. Like, you think he would have learned to be better at it.
It is kind of crazy, though. It's like, yeah, he likes being bad. It's true. Like, he has no understanding of the consequences of his behavior. So we thought he knew right from wrong, but he doesn't.
I guess not.
I guess that just wasn't a part of his intelligence. Right from wrong?
He missed that one area.
Yeah.
That's
he
why
scores
he's not
high on all the
100%.
other ones, but right from wrong?
0.
In the bucket. In the poop chute.
It's a negative.
Yeah.
You are dumb in that scenario. So, Bev, for this, he spent 3 more years in jail. Now, by October 1971, Lawrence was arrested again for burglary and multiple parole violations. Ultimately, he was sentenced anywhere from 6 months to 15 years.
Why do they keep letting him out of prison is my question.
Like, just
it's
let
like
him serve his 15.
Yeah, let him serve his time. Like, every time he's been let out, he's back at it within, like, well, a short time, it
2
seems.
to 3 years.
Yeah, like, geez, he ain't learning from his mistakes at all.
Yeah, exactly. He's not learning. And in this scenario, he still doesn't learn. Because why? They keep releasing him at around that 3-year mark.
Yeah.
So after the 3 years, it's 1974. And as we can predict, he keeps being a criminal.
Yeah.
He keeps committing crimes. However, at this moment in his life, these crimes start escalating. And he ended up being arrested for assault with attempt to commit murder.
Holy shit.
I know. It went from just like stealing cars and petty theft to like, ooh,
I'm gonna kill you.
almost like murder. I know.
Holy.
What had happened was he stabbed a young supermarket employee who accused him of stealing. They actually saw him stealing a steak. They followed him outside and into the parking lot where he asked him, "Hey man, did you forget to pay?" And instead of Lawrence explaining or apologizing for what he did, his decision was to just stab the employee in the chest. He barely missed their heart and had attempted to get away, but was actually restrained by 2 other supermarket employees.
Holy shit. That is freaking insane. Just stealing a steak. One, his MO of like stealing is still the main reason why any of this occurred. Like he steals, he gets confronted, has some issues with emotional regulation, and some crazy confrontation methods. I don't know. But still, he was trying to steal a steak.
I know.
It's so weird.
Just a steak. Like, was he hungry?
He's murdering someone over a steak. Or trying to.
That's incredible.
It must have been a freaking AAA grade steak or something.
What Wagyu?
Yeah. It should have been some Wagyu shit.
I ain't giving my Wagyu back.
No, I need my Wagyu steak. But geez.
I know. It's terrible. Like, God, man.
If someone leaves your store with a steak, do not follow them.
Let them go. It ain't worth it.
The steak ain't worth your life.
That's right.
Life over steak.
Life over steak. Okay. That's our new mantra. Life over steak.
Life over steak. Life over steak.
Oh, yes, yes to the beat. Yes to the beat.
Life over steak. Life over steak.
Damn, it's a great remix. We're in the wrong industries here, Bev.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, the young man survived. And Lawrence was only charged with assault with a deadly weapon. And that's what ultimately got him sent to the California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo.
Where he met Roy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Now, a bit about Roy, Bev. He was born in Greeley, Colorado on February 5th, 1948. He was conceived out of wedlock. His parents had chosen to marry to avoid the social stigma, though. His father worked in a scrapyard, and his mother was apparently a drug addict housewife.
Jeez. A drug addict housewife.
A drug addict housewife. That is a title I wish to never have.
Ditto.
Now, because his home life was not all that stable, he occasionally lived with his parents, but many times throughout his childhood was placed in the care of foster families within the state of Colorado. Now, regardless if he was at home or in the foster homes, he was often neglected by all parties. And he was frequently denied food and clothing, and he also claimed that he had been sexually abused when in the care of a Hispanic family. Which, as an adult, he would state that this is the reason that he held a prejudice towards Hispanic people.
Oh man. I mean, I could definitely see that. That's sad. I mean, I like just based on what you said, like without food and clothing and like getting sexually abused, it's just so sad because it truly does feel like that is a lot of people's experience, like when they are in foster care. They're denied like access to things and then they're abused.
Which is so fucked up to me because these children are taken from their families and put in foster care to get them out of
a bad situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's so unfortunate
that
so many
goes
people
on.
seem to have that experience.
I know.
And also, you know what? Over COVID, I personally looked into becoming a foster parent myself.
What?
I did. I like researched how do you become one.
It's an extensive process, isn't it?
Yeah, and you have to take like parenting classes, and depending on the level of like behavior of the children you want to accept into your home,
Yeah.
you have to take higher levels depending on like how more or how aggressive the kids are, what trauma they went through. So with all the training that goes on, how do you end up with such shit foster parents? Tell me that.
Well, I mean, like, if you want to be put in a good position to take out your pedophile fantasies, you would do anything. I mean, it's a small price to pay to be in that type of position, you know?
I guess that's true. And I've often heard like social workers in that scenario are overworked. So it must be hard to be able to keep track of every single kid, like even on a weekly, monthly basis, right?
Yeah. I don't think that type of system is funded very well. I could be wrong. I don't actually know much, so I don't want to really say too much about it, but I just have the feeling that like social services in general aren't funded as well as they could be by governments or by provinces or states.
And I think, you know what, honestly, Bev, I think that's a pretty fair, possibly logical assumption, because if it was funded better, maybe there would be better care for those children in the system.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Like,
because I know like how much some of those positions pay. And like often it's not very competitive or very good.
and the stuff they have to deal with, that's so sad, right? Because it doesn't entice people to want to work in that department.
Or entice people with like a lot of skills to work in that department. So some people might be undereducated or have less experience than is required to deal with some of the issues that some of the kids in their care are facing. Anyways, we totally went off on a tangent about foster care.
More people should talk about it, but let's move on.
Exactly.
So at the age of 16, Roy had apparently visited a home of a female relative who was in her early 20s. And apparently he was speaking to her in a fairly sexual, suggestive manner. She shot him down right away, but she did tell his father what he was saying to her. And as we know, it wasn't the greatest home life. And he threatened Roy with a beating.
Right. He's like, don't you ever do that again or I'll kick your ass, boy. Something of that nature.
Came out so naturally, Bev.
I don't know why. I've watched too many movies.
Boy.
Boy.
Classic. Boy.
I know.
All you're missing is like a cigarette
Boy.
in your hand right now.
Oh my gosh.
Too good, Bev. So Roy was pretty pissed that he was even like threatened by his dad. And I'm sure he was very fearful, but he's a 16-year-old male.
Coming into his own.
Exactly.
Got some muscles on him probably.
Yeah. And you know what he did?
He threatened to beat his father right back. You beat me?
No, I beat you.
No, I beat you, fool.
No, he stole his car.
Oh my God. Okay.
He actually stole it and drove to the Rocky Mountains and attempted suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it took a pretty sad twist there.
Jeez.
He had injected pure air into an artery in his arm. This attempt did not work, and he ultimately was apprehended as a runaway, returned back to his parents' house, where his parents, for some reason, decided to inform him and his younger sister that they were both unwanted.
Oh my God.
Like, what? You just add insult to injury?
That's crazy.
I know.
What a lack of compassion from his parents. Shit.
And they're like, we don't care if you try to kill yourself. You were unwanted anyways.
Oh
Like, that's
my
the point that
God.
I'm kind of, or the gist that I'm getting.
Well, same. You have no compassion that your son tried to end his life? Wild to me.
I know.
And then, like, be gone.
Yeah. I mean, his sister is a seeming like unsuspecting victim of his parents' terribleness. And they tell her too, like, shitty parents all the way around.
Which is very odd. I'm just starting to notice a similarity and another commonality between these two men of being unwanted, abandoned by their parents.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, no wonder why they became such good friends as we discussed their, like, history, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
So not long after that, Roy needed to get out of the house. He dropped out of high school and he joined the United States Navy.
Oh my God. Another similarity. Dropped out of high school.
Right?
This is kind of freaking me out.
And it wasn't like the 60s too, so I think that was a little bit more common than nowadays. Maybe?
I would say probably, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't as like, you need a high school education, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, he joined the Navy, and he actually was stationed in San Diego. And by 1965, he had been deployed and served in the Vietnam War. And in 1969, he had completed one tour of duty totaling 4 months in Vietnam. After that, he was honorably discharged. Later that year, Roy was arrested for his first known sexual offense. He was charged with assault with attempt to commit rape. Apparently, he had attempted to force his way into a car of a lone woman and assault her.
Fucking terrifying.
So scary. That's like one of my biggest fears. I like get in my car, immediately lock the door.
Immediately.
Like, it ain't happening in here.
Yeah, and I'm like looking around me the whole time I'm walking to my car, have my keys in my hand, ready to gouge out an eyeball.
Right?
Yeah.
Be aware is the first key.
Be aware of your surroundings.
Yep.
So he tries to force his way into her vehicle.
Yes.
And he successfully, or no, because he's just charged with an attempted.
Exactly, yeah. Now, he was arrested, but he was out on bail. And 3 months later, in February of 1970, he tried to convince a woman who was alone at home to let him into her house. When she denied him, he attempted to break into her house, but she called the police and they were able to arrest him before he could hurt her.
So he got in.
He just attempted to break into her house, so I don't think he actually got in yet.
Oh man, that is
the police showed up
also
before it went downhill.
another fear of mine right there.
Being home alone, someone breaking in.
Walking from my car to my front door. Again.
It's like 5 steps.
Checking around me. Looking at my surroundings.
That's right. Always be aware. It doesn't matter if it's 5 steps or 20. Just be aware.
Truly terrifying, though.
It really is. The thought is like...
So now this is 2 times that he's tried to hurt a woman.
In 3 months.
Damn.
So 3 months after his second arrest, Roy was diagnosed by the Navy psychologist with schizoid personality disorder. He was then given an administrative discharge from the Navy under terms labeled as psychological problems.
Okay. So both these gentlemen have now been psychologically assessed by different parties, and they both have some psychological issues, which if their past didn't tell us that, now we have psychologists saying that.
Yeah, like more of an absolute.
Something's going on in their psyche.
Absolutely. Now, by May 1970, Roy was out on bail, and he had attacked a female student that he had been stalking on the San Diego State University campus. It's noted that he struck her on the back of the head with a rock until she slumped to her knees before he beat her against the sidewalk.
My God. That is
aggressive.
Like, that's messed up. So this is the 3rd woman he's attacked.
Exactly.
But this one he stalked.
And was
successful in attacking.
Exactly. And it was far more brutal.
Mm-hmm. I think he realized he had to be prepared. At least that's what it feels like, because the other ones were kind of
a little willy-nilly,
you know, just to kind of try and get in someone's home, try and get in her car. This woman was stalked.
Yeah, he waited for his opportunity and saw it through.
Yeah.
So not long after that incident, he was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, and he was sentenced to a Atascadero State Hospital for 5 years.
What? Because of his psychological issues?
Yes. He was classified as a mentally disordered sex offender. And unlike his late friend Lawrence, he actually spent the whole 5 years
in the hospital,
incarcerated, and was released in 1975. When he was released, he also received 5 years of probation and was labeled by doctors to no longer be a danger to others. These words would be eaten by the doctors because only 3 months after his release, he approached a woman walking home from a restaurant in Redondo Beach. He offered her a ride on his motorcycle, but she said no. He ended up parking his motorbike, grabbed the woman's scarf, twisting it around her neck, and told her he was going to rape her. He then dragged her into some nearby bushes, and because she was so scared and feared for her life, she did not resist this assault.
Oh my God.
The woman did report this to the police. However, they were unable to find out who was this man, and therefore no arrests were made.
Dang, Becky.
By a stroke of luck, the same woman actually saw his motorcycle parked, noted the license plate number, and immediately gave it to the police. He was then arrested for rape and was convicted a year later, and for this he was sent to California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo. And this is where Roy and Lawrence met and became friends. Now, Lawrence Bittaker was released from the California Men's Colony on October 15th, 1978. At that point, he returned to LA and started working as a skilled machinist. Now, apparently that job earned Lawrence $1,000 a week. And I mean, in the 70s, that's a boatload, Bev.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. I mean, I think even now it'd be like a decent wage.
Yeah. So you think he has a good job, he must be doing well, right?
You would think.
Yeah. So in that time, he ultimately befriended several people within his neighborhood, and he earned a reputation as a generous and helpful individual. He actually donated a bunch of money to the Salvation Army on several occasions. He was also known to have bought large amounts of fast food and wine and would hand it out to homeless people in downtown LA. Like, he seems so generous. Like, what the hell? Is he reformed?
Probably not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about him. But they do say, like, there's a lot of people who are psychopathic or psychopaths that lead pretty normal lives, and to outsiders may even seem like beacons of their communities. So maybe that's what we're seeing here.
That is absolutely what we're seeing. So, along with being a really friendly guy and great neighbor, he actually was really popular among local teenagers. This was because he always had beer and marijuana at the motel that he resided at, and it actually became a real popular spot for teenagers to socialize. Sounds creepy.
Sounds creepy AF.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I have some candy in my van. You want some candy?
Come on down.
Come to my basement for some candy.
Never leave.
Yeah, that's what
like,
it seems like.
It's like the Family Guy. At the popsicle.
That's exactly, the popsicle. That's what I'm like, that's what I was trying to.
I got what you were putting down.
Yeah. But yeah, like super creepy. It's like the modern day
old man with a walker.
Yeah.
Got some popsicles.
I got some weed and alcohol in my motel.
That's right.
Come to my motel. Hotel. Holiday Inn. Anyways.
Interesting.
Kind of creepy. Like 100% creepy.
Yeah, like no sane person thinks that that's a logical thing to do.
No
and not
sane
seem
person
like a creeper.
Would even put themselves in that position. They'd be like, fuck no.
That's right.
Just based on the premise of how it fucking looks to the public.
Yeah.
I.e. creepy.
Creepy. Like you doing something wrong with those teens.
Yeah.
Now, Bev, not long after Lawrence had been released, 3 months later, January 15th, 1979, Roy was also released from prison. At that time, he decided to move back home with his mom in Redondo Beach. However, it wasn't long before he got up to his mischievous ways and had raped a woman and abandoned her in the desert.
Holy fuck.
Now, he wasn't caught for that, so he went on with his life and he gained employment as an electrician in Compton. Now, Lawrence found out that Roy was released and decided to send him a letter in late February of 1979. At that point, the two men decided to rekindle their friendship, and they met at a hotel, and they made a plan to kidnap and rape girls.
I knew they were scheming about something.
You called it.
Those motherfuckers.
Exactly. So they spent quite a bit of time actually deciding how they were going to do it and what they wanted from it. The pair realized that they ultimately needed a vehicle to facilitate their plan, and they ended up purchasing a silver gray 1977 GMC Vendura, which is a van.
They literally purchased a rape van. One of those rapey vans we're all terrified of.
Yes. I grew up so fearful of those vans.
So did I.
It is the classic.
Who doesn't grow up fearful of those vans?
This was like the classic, like, stranger danger van.
Yeah.
It was windowless on one side, and it had a large sliding passenger door in the back. They realized this was the perfect automobile because they could just pull up beside a girl, open the door,
Snatch her up. That is so creepy.
What's even more creepy is that they nicknamed their murder vehicle as Murder Mac.
What?
That is the van's name.
The Murder Mac.
Murder Mac. Now, as evil as this duo was, they were not dumb. They were not trying to get arrested. And
Again.
And from February to June of 1979, they picked up over 20 female hitchhikers. None of them were assaulted in any way. However, these men described it as practice runs. They used this to create their own set of rules on how to lure women voluntarily into the van. They also would use this as time to figure out good, secluded locations.
Ew. They are putting a lot of thought into this. Like, to actually pick up women, they're trying to see what tactics work. Like, how can we get women into our Murder Mac successfully?
Exactly. That is exactly what they're doing.
That's nasty.
Isn't it? And in late April, the two men ended up finding a fire road in San Gabriel Mountains where they ended up breaking off the lock on a gate that was blocking the road. They used a crowbar and actually ended up replacing the lock with one of their own so that they had consistent access.
Their own side road.
Their own side road. They made it a private side road.
So they have this Murder Mac. They have put practice runs into abducting women successfully. They've created their own private estate / sketchy side road to, I don't know what, take women, assault them.
Yes.
That's fucking insane.
I know, like
the premeditation. Like, how many chances do these men have to, like, say, this is a bad fucking idea? Like, well, months. They have months and hours where they could say, you know what?
We're not going to do this
We're
anymore.
not going to be nasty rapists.
Yeah, this is a bad idea.
But no.
They carry on.
I think this could be like the definition of premeditation.
And what's worse, Bev, is these men, Jimmy rigged a bed in the rear of the van, and underneath it, they actually had a little cubby where they placed a bunch of tools, extra clothes, and a cooler filled with beer and soft drinks. They also kept a stash of marijuana for whenever they needed it.
Damn.
They ultimately felt ready and confident that they could fulfill their dark desires of rape and murder.
Yeah, it's like, seems like they've thought of everything, like even a change of clothes.
Everything.
If they get too messy,
here's our change of clothes.
Like, that's fucking wild.
I know. So on June 24th, 1979, they start at 11 a.m. They start drinking, smoking weed, flirting with women as they drove around town. They were searching for the right victim to come along, and around approximately 7:45 p.m., Roy spotted a 16-year-old girl named Lucinda Lynn Schaefer. She was beautiful, and she was leaving a Presbyterian church meeting in Redondo. She was on her way to her grandmother's house by foot. Apparently, Roy had told Lawrence, there's a cute little blonde.
Ew, I hate that.
Gross, right?
She's just trying to leave church and go to her granny's house, Roy. Like, fuck off.
The most innocent series of events.
God. Devastated.
Now, Bev, although the two men had practiced with multiple women how they were going to lure each one in.
What, this doesn't go as planned?
It doesn't. Their tactics ultimately were unsuccessful.
Maybe because they were trying to con some woman in with, like, drugs and alcohol, and this poor woman's coming from fucking church.
She's like, no, I don't want the devil's grass.
Yes.
I'm underage. I ain't drinking, you dummies.
Hooligans.
Exactly. So Lucinda kept walking. However, Roy and Lawrence were determined, and they drove up ahead, parked alongside a driveway. And then Roy got out of the vehicle, opened the sliding door, and kind of sunk back in, hiding himself into the van. And when she passed by, they exchanged a couple words before he dragged her into the van and closed the door.
Oh my gosh.
Now, Lawrence, who was driving, cranked the volume on the radio while Roy bound Lucinda's arms and legs and gagged her with duct tape. The men then head to the fire road where they had changed the lock And at that time, both men took turns raping Lucinda. She asked them if they were going to kill her, and they said no. She pleaded with them. She must have known shit was going down. I mean, how can you not? But she says, if you're going to kill me, please give me a moment so that I can pray.
Oh my God, this poor angel.
Like, God-loving little young woman.
Do they let her?
No, Bev.
They don't let her pray?
No.
Oh, fuck. That's so sad.
I know.
Damn.
Now, once the men had their ways with her, they ultimately argued on whether or not they should kill her or let her go. Roy began to strangle her with his hands, and he later said in an interview that he was so disturbed by the look in her eyes, he couldn't do it. And ultimately, Lawrence finished the job. The pair then wrapped her in a plastic shower curtain and threw her over a steep canyon. 2 weeks later, on July 8th, 1979, the men encountered an 18-year-old named Andrea Joy Hall.
Wait, how many weeks later?
Just 2.
Holy shit.
I know. 2 weeks. Like, they had a craving for more right away. So Andrea, she had been hitchhiking along the Pacific Coast Highway, which is a major one in that area. And when they saw her, they slowed down, pulled over, and they offered her a ride. Coincidentally, though, another vehicle pulled over at pretty much the same time and offered her a ride as well. I don't know if it was her intuition, but she went with the other guys.
Holy shit. How fucking lucky.
I know. Well, not so lucky.
Why? Were they murderers too?
That would be terrible chances. No, they were not murderers. However, Lawrence and Roy had their eyes set on her. So they actually followed that vehicle to Redondo Beach.
Fucking Redondo Beach, man.
It's not a safe place for those women
not
in the 70s.
Place.
No. So the vehicle had dropped Andrea off there. Now, Roy and Lawrence, they tried to use a different tactic to lure her in. Now, Roy hid in the back to make it seem that Lawrence was the only one there and that he was alone so that she felt a bit safer.
Yeah.
He had offered her a cold beverage from the cooler, and at that time, Roy was hidden behind a bedspread in the back of the van. And when she attempted to get the drink, he pounced on her. They fought strenuously, and he subdued her by twisting her arm behind her back, causing her to scream in pain. And then he gagged her with adhesive tape, and same as Lucinda, found her wrists and ankles and bound them. They ended up driving to the same road in the San Gabriel Mountains, and Lawrence had his way with her 2 different times, and then Roy did once. After they assaulted her, they got a little spooked because Lawrence thought he saw some headlights approaching, and he put his hand over Andrea's mouth, dragged her to some nearby bushes in case someone stopped, but then he sent Roy to go look to see if he could find that said vehicle. He didn't find anything, though. So he returned, and the 2 men decided that they would drive further down the San Gabriel mountain range. And at that point, Lawrence forced Andrea to walk up a hill naked along the road and forced her to pose for several Polaroid pictures and then perform oral sex on him.
Ugh.
The men chose then to drive to a 3rd spot where Lawrence then forced Hall out of the vehicle and up another nearby hill. And Roy at that point decided, hey, we need more alcohol. So he left to go get some. When he returned, Lawrence was alone. He had 2 more Polaroid pictures that he had taken of Andrea. Both photos depicted sheer terror expressions. Apparently, she had begged for her life to be spared. Lawrence told Roy that he had taunted Andrea and got her to give him as many reasons as to why he should let her live. However, this was just a part of his sadistic enjoyment, because when she was done, he thrusted an ice pick through her ear and into her brain. He turned her over, like flipped over her body, and did it to the other ear. He then stomped on the ice pick until the handle broke.
Oh my God.
And at that point, she wasn't quite dead. Obviously, severely injured, but she wasn't dead yet. And at that point, he chose to strangle her before throwing her body off of a cliff.
My God.
Like, what a goddamn savage.
Fuck. Yeah. It's just devastating. Like, there's just so many moments that maybe she thought,
maybe this is my opportunity to get away, or they're gonna let me go.
Yeah.
And then he made her
beg
and try and convince him why she should live,
knowing full well that, like, it was never
gonna
gonna happen.
Yeah. Like, what a
dick.
Ultimate horrible human.
What a fucking dick.
Right? Like, put her at, like, not that she should be killed, but like,
no, but like,
put her out of her misery if you're gonna
do
taunt
that.
her like that. Like,
I know.
What a dick. It's so horrible.
So horrible.
Okay, Bev.
It almost seems like Lawrence the fucking worst of the two.
He is the fucking worst.
Like, cause he's killed both women at this point.
Yes, he has.
Like, Roy hasn't been able to.
Yeah, no, he's like part of the assault and like that gross stuff.
Yeah, like, it's all bad, but
Yeah.
like, I'm just surprised that Lawrence is the one that's like taking the pleasure out of killing her, just because his crimes prior to this were
minor in comparison to
Roy.
But you know what? He was the one that said, if I rape someone, I'm going to kill them. However, instead of just like, we can't have any witnesses, he is taking pure
joy
and pleasure out of the like lead up to the murder and then the actual killing itself. Like, it's not just like no witnesses. It is fun for him.
Yeah. I mean, he's taking the pictures, seeing the fear in this person's eyes, making them beg and plead their case to him. Like, disgusting.
It's awful.
It is awful.
So, Bev, honestly, this was a lot for me.
Yeah.
The story is going to continue, but...
and it just probably gets worse.
It gets worse, but we are going to save that for part 2.
Give ourselves a goddamn break.
Yeah, I need a moment.
Because that's goddamn brutal.
Exactly. So, we'll cover the second half next week.
Sure.
But thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for sharing.